Welcome back, my friends. My name's Gareth. This is Tech Check, and have we got a surprise for you? Yes, we're back with another PC build, and this one's really special because this one's from a subscriber, travelled a long way up, and he's with me today, sitting in the other room. He's a little bit camera shy, but I don't blame him. What's not shy is this mammoth of a computer. So we're going to be going through step by step today of how to build this 3080 Ti with this 5900X in this Corsair 5000D. If you're interested, stick with me because it's going to be amazing. So what we're going to do, guys, is just give you a rundown of the actual parts in this particular build. And trust me, some insanely nice parts. The customer's actually made some really nice choices. Really top-end parts here as well. So let's start off with the case. This is Corsair's 5000D. And it's an iteration of their glass panel version, but with airflow in mind. It is absolutely fantastic, guys. You're talking about shrouds, you're talking about cable management, you're talking about airflow, and you're talking about how to show off that RGB, then this is the case for you. And it's all packaged within this ITX case, and it's going to be right up my street. I'm actually thinking about changing my Lian Li XL case to this, so we'll see how it actually turns out. Next up is the power supply, and you can't go wrong. It's Corsair's RM1000X. So if you're looking for clean power delivery, modular design, and a 10-year guarantee, then this is the one for yourself. Next up, guys, is this Trident Z Neo RAM, specifically designed for, obviously, Ryzen chips, and this is what's known as the creme de la creme, guys. It's 64 gigs, 3600 megahertz at CL14. Timings are 14, 15, 15, 35, so they don't come much nicer. So essentially, the best of the best. Next up, guys, is the AMD Ryzen 9 5900X. 12 core, 24 thread beast. So if you're looking for multi-threaded tasks, you're well taken care of with this. You're looking for the latest FPS gains, you're well taken care with this as well. Next up, guys, is this MSI Supreme X GeForce RTX 3080 Ti. Absolutely stunning graphics card. So if you're looking for the highest FPS and a really nice designed card, guys, you're not going to go wrong with this 12 gigabyte 3080 Ti. So really excited, number one, to have a look at it, and number two, to see how this contrasts with this 5000D. For cooling, we've gone for none other than the Z73 from nzxt. Absolutely beautiful in terms of the gifts that you can have on top of the cooler, and not only that, its stylish design will fit really nicely with the case. Onto storage, we've gone for these 980 Pros. Now we've got a 2 terabyte and we've got a 1 terabyte version, but not only that, we've got an 870 Evo SSD as well. So essentially we've got 7 terabytes of ultra fast storage. Tying all that together, guys, we've got none other than the X570 Aorus Master. Absolutely insane value for money kind of X570 motherboard. You've got all the PCIe lanes you're going to need. Fantastic connectivity for these NVMe's or M.2 drives. Brilliant RG connectivity as well. So in my eyes, it's a really good feature-rich board at a really good cost. Moving on to actual fans, guys, and we're going to install 13 of these Lian Li SL120 Unifans. Not only are they going to look absolutely amazing because it's black on black, but it's going to provide that RGB goodness that everyone's looking for. Not only that, we've got more RGB via the way of this RGB lighting kit from Corsair. We're also going to install these Lian Li strimmer 24-pin and 8-pin cables, as well as a sag bracket for this monster of a graphics card as well. So hopefully, now that we've given you a rundown of the parts, let's get building. So first step in any build, guys, put all your parts to one side. Make sure you've got a really clean surface, guys, and we only want to deal with the parts that we're actually going to be installing at that time. So in this respect, it's going to be our motherboard, our CPU, both of our NVMe drives, as well as our RAM. We'll come to the cooler when we come to install the motherboard into the case. But clear off everything, make sure you've got a clean surface, and all will be good. So first step in any build then, guys, once we've cleared everything off, we've got the parts that we need, let's proceed to take our motherboard out of the box. We're going to need a couple of things out of our motherboard box, guys. Things such as our SATA data cable. We're going to need one of those. We're also going to need some of the M.2 connections as well. Obviously, Gigabyte give you this lovely G connector. We'll probably use that. We don't need to use it, but we probably will. And we just need our M.2 screws. If you're worrying about static or anything like that, guys, go ahead and get an anti-static bracelet. Make sure you are grounded, but there's no better place than the actual motherboard box itself. So go ahead and place that on top of there. And then you've got somewhere which is nice, clean, that's going to protect not only your own surface, but it's going to protect the back of the motherboard as well. Once we've got our motherboard out, guys, next step is preparing, obviously, the CPU. Let's get that out of the box, and then we'll go ahead and we'll install it. So a little more about this CPU, guys. This is the Ryzen 9 5900X, 12 cores, 24 threaded, absolute beast. Looking for the highest FPS, can't go wrong with this, guys. Multi-threaded, benefits in this as well. So if you're going to be video editing or a content designer or creator or anything like that, you won't go far wrong with this CPU. So like in every CPU installation, guys, what we need to do is we need to match the triangle on the CPU to the triangle which is on the bottom of your CPU socket. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to open the latch of the socket. And when we're removing the CPU out of this casing, guys, be ultra careful because these do have a tendency to fly out. And the problems you're going to have is the actual pins are on the CPU and not in the actual socket themselves. So do be careful when you're taking this out. Next thing to notice here, guys, try and keep your fingers off of the IHS. It's really nice and clean as is. And likewise, keep your fingers off the bottom of the pins as well. What you will see is there is a tiny little triangle at the bottom end of this CPU. And what we want to do is we want to match that triangle there with the triangle which is in the corner of the CPU socket. We go ahead and nicely drop that into place. And then we can go ahead and pull down the retention lever. And just like that, our CPU is installed. Next thing up is our beast of RAM sticks, or DIMMs of RAM if you like. And like I said, guys, these are really the best of the best. CL14, 3600 megahertz, and they are obviously DDR4. DDR5 has just come out at 5200, and no doubt that they will be absolutely insane. But what I can tell you is that 5200 at somewhere 38 CAS latency will be somewhere within the same ballpark as these. As drivers get better, as they improve the efficiencies of them, obviously they will be better because it's the next generation. But for anyone that's still running DDR4, then this is really the creme de la creme. So as we said previously, guys, this is 64 gigabytes worth as well. So very, very straightforward. X570 platform. Go ahead and open all of your DIMM slots. Because we've got 4 sticks of RAM, we're going to be populating each DIMM slot. If you only had 2 sticks of RAM, then you would start from the outermost side on the right. You would populate, miss a slot, then populate, then miss a slot. If there is any confusion or anything like that, there is a little guide on the side of your DIMM slots here, or please do consult your motherboard manual as well. So installing this Trident Z Neo Sexy RAM, guys, you will see that not only does it has the aesthetics, but it also has the performance to boot as well, guys. On the bottom, you'll see this little notch on the actual DIMM of the RAM stick there. And what we need to do is essentially match that with the notch on the actual motherboard itself, or the DIMM slot itself. So we need to turn that round, okay? And the easiest way of doing it is by putting one side in and then the other side in. And then what we can do is put firm pressure on both sides until we hear a click. There we go. And what we need to do, guys, is repeat that for each of the RAM slots. So essentially, guys, as long as we've got all 4 DIMM slots populated and we hear that click, that means that all of our RAM sticks are seated correctly and we shouldn't experience any problems further down the line. Do ensure that they are seated correctly, because the worst thing in the world is to get everything built, all populated into the case, and then you have some errors at post stage where you've got to kind of get your hands in, undo these clips and take them out. It's better to do it much better now. So next up, guys, are our 980 Pros from Samsung. These are Gen 4 drives. We've got a 2 terabyte and a 1 terabyte version. The 1 terabyte version is going to be placed on our top drive, which is going to support our basically Windows boot drive. and then the 2TB version is going to go on the next slot down. So the great thing about X570 is it shares the PCIe lanes, so both of these Gen 4 drives are going to be making sure that we're running at those Gen 4 speeds. So next step, let's get them installed. So very straightforward, guys. All we've got to do is remove this heatsink by removing the screw on the left, and then we can remove that. One thing to note here, guys, is on the back of the heatsink there is some plastic that we are going to have to remove before we reinstall it. We'll do the same for the next drive down, and likewise again more plastic. We'll go ahead and we'll undo the 1TB version first. So installing these NVMe drives or M.2 drives, guys, couldn't be easier. Essentially, remove the NVMe drive from the outer packaging, put it at a slight angle into the actual drive or slot itself, and you will see that it will stand up on its own. What we want to do that for is to essentially find out where we need to place our standoff so we can secure it to the motherboard. Once you know that we want to use this outer standoff here, you want to grab your standoff and your screw, and you can go ahead and place it in the board. This doesn't need to be screwed in, guys, it can be just done finger tight. Then you'll need your screw as well. And what we can do is go ahead and install our NVMe drive again. There we go. And now you'll see that that will rest nicely on that standoff. This is where a magnetic screwdriver really does come in handy, because these screws are absolutely tiny, guys. So we can secure that down. There we go. And then the next step, guys, is to essentially remove this film off of this heatsink, and we can go ahead and replace this over our drive. Screw it back in. And essentially, guys, there we go. We have got our CPU installed, our RAM successfully installed and seated correctly. We've got our boot drive, our Gen 4 980 on the top slot up here. And then on the very next slot down, we've got our 2TB Gen 4 980 as well. So if you followed along, guys, you should be in a position now where we can start preparing the case, and we can think about putting the motherboard inside it. Talking of cases, guys, they don't come much better than these 5000Ds. Absolutely insane. In terms of aesthetics, they look absolutely beautiful. In terms of performance, they perform just as well. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're just going to tear down this case, make sure that we've removed both side panels and removed the top panel and the front panel as well, just to give us as much room to move as physically possible, because we're going to install this motherboard and then we're going to install all of the fans as well. So very easy in terms of removing the actual panels themselves, guys. The top and the front panels simply just get pulled off. Also comes with this fantastic little filter here at the top and at the front. To remove the side panels, guys, very straightforward. You've got these captive thumb screws which are just there. Once you've unscrewed them, give it a slight pull, and then the side panels come off really easy. And now we really start to see where this case absolutely shines. You've got this full length PSU cover which is here. You've got the option to remove this with a replacement part that Corsair actually includes, so that you can easily install these 360 all-in-one coolers at the front if you wish to do so. It comes pre-installed with these two 120 fans and the ability to put up to 6 different fans in a push-pull configuration at the top if you wish to do that also. You've got this all blacked out design, as well as this nice cutout for installing your back plates for your CPU coolers. And yeah, overall guys, it's just not only a pleasure to look at, but it's a pleasure to build in as well. So if you're thinking that you're going to struggle with cable management or anything like that, on the back is where some of the actual bonuses come in as well. So as you can see on this side guys, you've got this opening here, so you can again install a 360 all-in-one cooler here, or 3 120 fans as well. But you've also got like this door on this side. So if you go ahead and open that up, not a very good angle, but what you can do is you can hide everything in the back of here. You've got plenty of connectivity for your SSDs, and in all honesty, you've got all the cable routing that you could ever wish for. So with that being said guys, what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and remove these standard 120mm fans. I'm going to uncouple the wires and ensure that they're all out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to install this motherboard. So when it comes down to connectivity guys, Corsair's thought about everything, especially cable management. Look how many different tie down points or these actual Velcro strips that they actually give you. It's absolutely insane. You've got 4, 8, you've got 12 different Velcro straps in there that you can actually utilize on this case. You've also got this USB 3 angle kind of adapter here as well. So if you don't want your actual USB 3 cable connecting because then leaving all the cables out, what you can do is put it on the side of your motherboard if you've got that connectivity, and that way you can route your cables really nicely as well. That being said guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to get this motherboard installed. Ensure that you are using the correct motherboard screws as well, because using the wrong ones can give you lots and lots of problems. So you want to ensure that you're using the right ones. So installing our motherboard into our case guys, try again, keep your fingers off as much of the actual motherboard as possible. This one's quite good because it's got this shroud on the back of it so you can actually touch it. But essentially what we're wanting to do guys is install our IO shield into our case if you've not got one that's pre-installed already. And then what we can do is we can lower it down into the case. We're wanting to match the holes on the motherboard with the standoffs which are pre-applied into the case. There we go. Nice. Now this actual motherboard's got a center pin, so you could actually install it when the case is actually standing up and you'd have no issues at all. If not guys, you will need 9 screws and go ahead and install them now. It does make it much more easier if you do have a magnetic screwdriver as well guys, because there is some of these which are a little more difficult to get to than others. Please be mindful as well guys, you don't need to screw this down mega tight. There has been instances where I've seen where you've actually damaged the motherboard by screwing it in too tight, and again, finger tight should be ample. It's now at this stage guys, we can go ahead and remove some of this plastic film, because essentially we're not going to be banging it or scratching it or anything like that. Do you want to have a quick look? It's got the RAM installed, motherboard installed, CPU, all your M.2s installed. He doesn't want to see it, he wants to wait till it's done. Right, so next step guys, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the CPU cooler. And it's a beauty guys. This Z73 is well known for their digital display, and not only that, but the performance as well. Right up there in terms of obviously the top performing AIOs as well. So again, not only does it perform well, but looks absolutely fantastic. So what we're going to do guys is we are going to remove these nzxt fans off of this, and we are going to be using some of the Lian uni fans just to be in keeping with regards to everything else. But we are going to do a push-pull scenario as well to give it that extra performance. If you have followed along so far guys, motherboard installed, CPU, RAM, our M.2 or NVMe drives installed as well, and the whole case has been disassembled, and it's starting to look really nice. So we're opening up guys this Z73, a really nice cooler. We're not going to need those instructions, but let's get it out now. As we said previously guys, we're not going to be using these 120mm fans from nzxt, but we are going to be using these Lian uni fans. So we're going to be doing push-pull, 3 on the top as an exhaust and 3 on the top, because this case has a little magic trick up its sleeve, and it allows you to basically place 3 of the fans outside of the case, enabling push-pull, so you've still got plenty of room inside as well. But essentially, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this out of the case, I'm going to remove everything that we don't need, and we're only going to be concentrating on what we actually need on the table. So we're now at a stage, guys, where we've got a clean desk. We've only got on here what we're actually going to need. So essentially, we have our pump and our radiator. We've got our fan screws here. We've got our back plate screws, which are here. We've got our thumb screws. We've got our AMD bracket, which is here. And then we've got our SATA power and USB 2 headers or cables, which are here. So essentially, guys, all that we've got to do, and I'll show you this anyway, but we need to remove the AMD backplate and the actual brackets that's currently installed onto the motherboard, and then we're going to go ahead and install these, and that will allow us then to install this all in one. But first things first, what I want to do is I want to get the fans in the push-pull configuration that we're actually installing them, and then essentially we want to remove this cover last thing, which will be changing it from the pre-installed Intel bracket to the AMD bracket, just so we can protect this copper plate here. Even though we are going to remove this CPU thermal paste and replace it with some MX4, I don't want to do that until last thing. So the first thing we're going to do, guys, is just simply remove these 2 screws up the top here, just to remove this AMD bracket off our motherboard. Very straightforward, 2 screws on one side, 2 screws on the other. You don't want to throw these away, just in case you ever want to change back to either a CPU fan cooler or some sort of other connectivity for this motherboard. And you will see the back plate can be removed. We do want to put that back in, just as like that. And then we want to turn it round like that, and we can grab our standoffs. And we can go ahead and install them. And again, guys, these don't need to be mega tight. I would just advise doing them thumb and finger tight. nzxt make a real good, easy job of this. So next step, guys, is installing our fans. And as we said previously, in keeping with the rest of the fans in terms of case fans, we want to keep these Lian uni fans. Obviously very popular with a huge number of people, because of obviously not only their very sleek and attractive design, but their good performance as well. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to orientate these fans on top of the radiator in terms of an exhaust, and then we're going to place 3 more fans on top of the radiator in terms of a pull. And essentially what we're doing is we're installing this side into the actual case, and then we're installing 3 more fans on top of the case in a pull configuration. So we're going to get some very nice temps out of this radiator, because it's a well-performing radiator, but in a push-pull config it's going to be even better. So essentially, guys, there's our 3 fans there. Again, the beautiful thing about these things, guys, is the fact that they haven't got all of the cables coming off of each fan. If these were 3QL120s, you would have an RGB header as well as, or an RGB cable as well as a PWM cable off each one, which would result in 6 fans. The biggest thing about this is essentially you've got 3 fans with a PWM and an RGB connection, and that will control all 3. So essentially it makes it much better in terms of cable management, but also much smarter in terms of how it's going to look. The next step, guys, is ensuring that you've got your orientation correct. We're obviously looking to make these as an exhaust, so we need to make sure that we are not looking at the X on the back of the actual fans themselves. So we want to be looking at the nice stylish front. So that's going to be pushing air through the actual case itself and into the radiator. So the next thing is ensuring that we've got our fan cables coming off the right side of the radiator to make sure that we can manage them correctly. So in this scenario, we're going to be installing our radiator into our case like so, and then we're going to having our pump coming around and connecting onto our CPU. So this will mean that having the fan cables out this side, these will be at the back of the case, allowing us to manage them correctly. Next step, guys, is attaching our fans to the actual radiator itself. Please ensure that if you are attaching fans to a radiator, you are using the correct screws. There is long screws and there is short screws. We want to make sure that we are using the right ones, guys. Do not go ahead and use these screws to attach your radiator to the case, because if you do, you will definitely cause damage. Those ones are the small ones, which are these ones here. Ensure before you insert the screws that you effectively put on the washer. That way it means it's going to make a decent contact with the fan and it's not going to push too far through the actual fan rubber and damage the fins on the actual radiator. When we're screwing these in, guys, again, they do not need to be mega tight. Don't go too far. You don't need to push through the actual radiator too much. You just need to ensure that they are secure. So effectively, guys, there we go. We've got our 3 fans which are installed correctly on the right side of the radiator to allow us to orientate it into the case with our cables coming off of the right side as well. What we're going to do now, guys, is go ahead and install the additional 3 fans in the top of the radiator, also securing the radiator to the case. So next step, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to install this into the top of the case. But again, likewise, we're going to utilize some larger screws and we're going to be pushing them through the actual case, through the fan, into the radiator, holding that into position. So we need to feed our cables through from our fans that we've attached to our radiators, and then we're going to secure the actual radiator in the top of the 5000D. We're then going to place 3 more fans on top of the actual case and secure it with the same long screws to secure it inside. As you can see here, they're nicely secure. We remove our plastic cover and remove the Intel bracket off of the pump, and then we can put our AMD bracket on. Simply done by just putting it on and twizzling it to one side. We can then securely install our AIO on top of our CPU. Don't do what I've done and install it lopsided. Make sure that you've got it so the pump is straight, because you can't change it in the nzxt software, guys. So unless you want your GIFs or any text that you have on this AIO showing being lopsided, make sure that you get your tubes accurate and correct. I just purely didn't notice it here as I was in a bit of a rush at this time. So as you can see here, guys, place the fan inside of the case. We'll install our rear exhaust fan. We want to make sure that the cables coming off of the fan are to the left hand side so we can easily cable manage it, and then we can go ahead and install the 4 screws that comes with the fan from outside the case. Bearing in mind new fans are quite difficult to install first times, but as soon as you catch the thread, one actual screw will be fine to keep it in place, and then you can actually put the other 3 in. So we'll install the front 3 fans. Fairly straightforward, guys. Attach all 3 of the unifans together as we've shown previously. Place the 3 unifans inside the case, and then very much similar to the rear exhaust fan, all we're going to do is screw from outside the case inwards, utilizing the 12 screws. Likewise, with regards to the cables, ensure that they're on the right hand side so they can be easily cable managed, and that way it's going to be much cleaner. So here I am, guys, just putting the last 3 fans that's going to be installed into the rear of the case as an intake. And here we are, just screwing in those front 12 screws for those 3 intake fans. Fairly straightforward, guys. Follows the same premise as what the rear exhaust did. Very straightforward. Just get one lined up and then the other ones should follow suit. And there we go. That's how it actually looks if it's installed correctly. So here we go, guys, the last 12 screws for the last 3 fans that we're going to install into the case. These ones are the ones that you've just seen me put together. So these 3 fans are acting as an intake, providing nice cool air through that filter on the side panel of this 5000D, and will give us much better temps. Now all your fans are installed, guys, you can go ahead and start doing a little bit of cable management. Here you can see me pulling through the USB type C, USB 3, HD audio, and our front panel power button, reset switch, etc. That way you know how much slack you've got on the other side, and you know how much you can tie them down. So go ahead and pull these through. You can connect them at this point if you wish to do so, but I do it a little bit further on down the video. So now that I've got our power switch, our reset switch, very, very straightforward, guys. Obviously with the Corsair 5000D, they very nicely provide you the equivalent of a G connector. So it's just one basically cable that you push into your front panel I/O. Much easier to see and a lot better in terms of for first time builders or new builders, because you can actually see what you're doing and there's clear instructions on the connector as well. So once you've installed these cables into this one connector, you can actually install it straight onto your power button and reset button connectors. Here you can see me installing it, just pointing out, guys, very, very clearly marked which cables go where, and then it only goes on one way, so you can just push it on, and it's much easier for, like I said, first time builders. We can then go ahead and install our USB 3. Again, this only goes on one way. It's got a little notch on top of the actual cable itself. They don't tend to be as flexible as other cables because they are a little larger, so do take your care, or do take your time when you're actually installing these. Some motherboards have them at the bottom of the motherboard, and some of them have them on the side where the 24 pin is. And again, the 5000D comes with that angled USB 3 connector, so you can utilize that if you wish to do so. Moving on to the USB Type C. This is primarily located on the right hand side of your motherboard, just below the 24 pin. It only goes on one way, so just take your time, ensure that it's secure. But again, this cable doesn't tend to be as flexible either as others, but you should be absolutely fine if you just take your time. Last but not least is our HD audio. That's always located on the bottom left hand corner of the motherboard. There's one pin missing, just line those pins up with the actual connector. Moving on to our 3.5-inch SSD. Now this is a 4TB SSD via Samsung. Absolutely fantastic quality, really good speeds. Not as quick as our nvme drives, but will still offer fantastic transfer speeds. So first thing what we're going to do, guys, is we are just going to take it out of its packaging. We're going to remove the drive cage on the back of the 5000D by a thumb screw. And then what you should be able to do is just line up the SATA drive with the 4 holes and then secure it utilizing 4 of the screws that came with the case. Once the SSD has been successfully installed, we can put it back onto the case and we can reinstall it utilizing the thumb screw. Moving on to this Corsair RM1000X. As we said previously, guys, absolutely fantastic power supply, 10-year guarantee, fully modular, and really nice sleek design as well. Should have no issues, no problems whatsoever. Ensure you remove all the packaging and little stickers, because once this is installed you're not going to be able to do it afterwards. So as you can see here, guys, absolutely fantastic looking power supply. As far as power supplies look, go ahead and start installing your cables or your power supply cables. This is the 24 pin. It only goes in one way, and as you can see, you've got 24 pins on one side and then you've got a dual connector on the other. It's easily identified by the markings on the actual power supply itself. Go ahead and install that, and then we'll go ahead and install our CPU cable, our 3 cables for our graphics card, our SATA power cable, and any additional cables that you might need. Now that you've got all your cables installed, make sure that your fan is orientated down if you've got an open vent at the bottom or a filter at the bottom. That way you're not going to suffocate your power supply. You can then go ahead and install the power supply with the 4 included screws. I have made some drastic changes. Speaking to the owner of the computer, he advised me that he would like to remove the shroud at the back and let them 3 additional fans actually shine through, giving better airflow. We've also changed this particular part of the shroud as well at the PSU, the other end of the PSU, to give a little bit more of an open air feeling down here as well. So the only other additional changes that I've done, guys, is added the 24-pin lian streamer cable. All we've done is kept everything exactly what we did, but in order to obviously remove this shroud, we had to remove the 24-pin and actually take these fans out at the back. And there's 3 little screws that you actually have to remove the Corsair straps in order to get to, which is a bit of a mind-boggling experience, because I was racking my brain as to how we could actually find and take that panel out. But good old Provoked Porn watched a quick video of his, quickly shown how to remove it, and within a minute we had it out. We had the radiator back installed, and now we've got these 3 fans on the side as an intake nicely showing. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're just going to crack on. We're going to make sure that everything's tidy up at the back. We've got a hell of a lot of RGB to actually reconnect and connect. Cable manage it, and then we'll put the graphics card in and hopefully do a post. So what we're going to do, guys, is just hook up our SATA data cable to our SSD. Pop that through to the front side, which is cool. So just a bit of a rundown then, guys. I know it looks like an absolute mess at this moment in time, but in all honesty, it's not that bad. We've got our 6 fans connected by these 2 RGB cables and 2 PWM connections here. We've got the 3 intake via these 2 cables here, and we've got these 3 intake via these 2 cables here, which then leaves us 1 cable at the back, which is obviously the exhaust fan. So essentially, let's go ahead, let's get everything connected, and hopefully we should have no problems. This connection here is for the USB 2 connection to our pump head, and that will need to go onto our motherboard, but we'll do that very, very shortly. We have also got 1 additional connection to our pump head, and that is so we can power it and it can attach to the CPU header. Now, don't know whether we're going to actually use any of the other connections other than the SATA power and obviously the normal connector for the pump, because this is for our CPU header and this is just a PWM splitter cable. So hopefully all will work fine, and we'll control the fan speeds and everything through the lian motherboard software. So all looking good, a little bit messy in places, but once we've got everything hooked up in terms of the controllers, it should all turn out really nicely. So we'll go ahead now, guys, and just attach our SATA data cable. Installing these strimmer cables, guys, very, very, very straightforward. Obviously, this 3080 Ti that we're going to be installing takes 3 8-pin cables. So we've used 3 8-pin outs or PCIe cables from our 1000 watt power supply, hooked up the other end to the actual strimmer cable, and very, very simply or strimmerly, we're just going to plug in each of these 8 pins into the front of our graphics card, and that will power that. Very, very similar to the 24-pin, just push the other end of the 24-pin into the strimmer cable, and then push the strimmer cable into our 24-pin on our motherboard. Now, each one of these motherboard cables, or should we say strimmer cables, has one of these cables off of the back, and I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. It's an 8-pin connector, one off of the 24-pin and one off of the 3 8-pins, and those there will need to go into the controllers that came with the actual lian strimmer cables. So we need to get those in. Now you see I've left these 3 connections for obviously SATA power, and that will be to connect number 1, the controller for obviously all of the fans, number 2 for the 8-pin, and number 3 for the 24-pin. So the only thing that I need to look at now is to locate a reasonable place in order to obviously put it, and then what we can do is just peel off the 3M tape on the back of these, and then we can plug all the cables in. Essentially meaning that as long as these are connected to our motherboard, we should be able to control them really easily. So we plug in our SATA power connection into our 24-pin or 3/8 pins for our strimmer cable, which goes that, and that's then powered by SATA power. So we could essentially just hook up that now, like that. We've then got 2 other cables, which is just here, and essentially this is for daisy chaining, and this one here we can connect directly to our motherboard, a 5-volt header if we wish to do so. So essentially, guys, the same thing for our 24 pin. We've got our SATA power. We've then got our 5-volt addressable header, which is here, and then this is where we can daisy chain this to the other one if we wish to do so. What we can also do, guys, is we can attach our 3/8 pins connector to this controller, as well as our 24 pin connector to this controller also. So what we've got now, guys, is our controller for all of our case fans, except for our rear fan, which we need to hook up to the motherboard via a 5-volt addressable header and also a PWM connection. But essentially everything else, guys, is going to run directly off of one of these fan controllers here. So essentially you've got one for RGB, one for PWM, one for RGB, one for PWM, and each controller can carry basically 12 fans. So we're going to run the top 2 plus the side 2, the top 2 sets of 3 plus the front 2 sets of 3 fans off of this. So essentially 12 fans in total. What we're going to do is we're just going to pop it on the back of this nice little tray here, which can be easily removed by the thumb screw. And then we're just going to run it via SATA power, which is here. And then we're going to run it down to our USB 2 header on our motherboard. So we're just going to peel off the back of this 3M tape, like so. And then we are going to nicely put it somewhere which is easily accessible. Plus we've got no problems with regards to the cables. So I think I'm going to pop it just up here. There could be better places to put it, guys, but this place is, at least it's really easily accessible, and we're not going to have any issues with regards to it at all. So just a quick one there, guys. I've just added for the strimmer cables to their control box. They need to be controlled to a 5-volt RGB header, which is just down here. Obviously the 12-volt is next to it. Don't connect it to that, whatever you do, or these cables will no longer be working. We've connected our USB 2 connection here, which is controlling the rest of our fans and everything like that, so we can control that nicely as well. So essentially the strimmer cables will be controlled by the motherboard software, and our rest of our case fans will also be controlled by our motherboard software, i.e. via the USB 2 connections. All we've got to do now is hook up one more cable from our pump, and we'll get on putting the graphics card in. What we're going to do now then, guys, is we are going to chuck in the graphics card, and dead straightforward, unclip number 2, number 3 on the graphics card on these little PCIe slots at the back, and then we're just going to slide it in and connect our PCIe cables, i.e. from our strimmer cable, and then we'll turn it on and see if we reach a post. As we said previously, this MSI Supreme X3080 Ti, absolutely stunning, gorgeous to look at, and hopefully will look just the part in this build as well. Oh, look at that. That is nice. Very, very nice. Absolutely gorgeous. So now that we've got that installed, guys, just press firmly down. There we go. And we've got a successful click. Let's go ahead, put our strimmer cable back in along with our 2 thumb screws. Let's turn it on. Here we go, guys. Here we go. Look at that. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. The case, absolutely beautiful, guys. Perfect to build in. Really, really nice, thoughtful process of Corsair with regards to the cable management, the tie down points, the grommet positions, and everything really, really comes together. Well, absolutely perfect. Okay, so we have only encountered one issue, and that being that with us having 13 fans in this particular case, we've got one controller that can control 12 fans, including obviously the RGB. But with this rear exhaust fan, we're unfortunately in a position where, although I can connect it to a PWM header so we can get it to spin, obviously we won't have any RGB at the minute. So if you guys know any way of connecting a 13th fan, because obviously this motherboard only has 2 USB headers, one for the pump and the other for the actual Lian lead controller, I would really, really appreciate it. So what we're going to do, guys, is crack it on, see if we can see some lights, and hopefully have no issues. So guys, we've reached that moment of truth, that stage where we've put some power in and time to see if we post. Now, the only thing I don't expect to work is this back fan here with the RGB, but I do expect it to spin. So with any luck, let's flick some power. Let's see if we get some action. I can see one light. Hopefully it's good. And power. Oh my God, it's come on! That is insane. There's so many RGB cables in here. So much RGB, it's unreal. Definitely this back fan is spinning. We have lights to every fan in here as well. The strimmer cables are insane. Last thing to note, let's just turn on this. You can quite clearly see here that it's just going through a boot sequence here. Reboot and select proper boot device or insert media, which means that we've not uploaded Windows on it or anything like that. We've not uploaded anything on it at all, guys. But essentially, this is now just insert your Windows installation flash drive, install Windows 10 or 11, depending on which one you want. Obviously, this is Windows 11 compatible, and away you go. So all in all, guys, 3080 Ti with a 5900X in this Corsair 5000D with more RGB than you know what to do with. It's been an absolute blessing. Been a bit of a pain because we've changed a few things here and changed a few things there. And apart from this rear fan back here, it's been absolutely fantastic. So parts or links to all the parts that are in this build, guys, are going to be down below in the description box. If you like the build, leave a comment down below as well. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscriber button as well. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.